Yes, welcome aboard the bus. It is the 29th of May. Celtic have been lifting more trophies. Yesterday it was the SPFL trophy. Glasgow was taken over. Phil was at the game, not yesterday, sorry, Saturday. Everyone's been partying all weekend. We decided to enjoy the celebrations this weekend on the bus and decided to get back into the swing of things as of the Monday. I jumped on for 10 minutes. I think it was about 7 people watching live, Phil, which tells you
Ooh.
everyone was out enjoying themselves. I just thought, you know what? That actually makes sense to me. It's not about breaking down, the match and all that on trophy day. It's about celebrating your successes, mate, or the team's successes, and that is what we decided to do. But it's good to be back. It's there's a sense of a smug feeling in the air. I think we'll be talking in depth today about our manager's short, sweet, and as always, cutting speech at the end of the game. We could talk a wee bit about some of the player records as well. I think Kyogo's definitely worth a wee mention. When I was looking at his stats, I think they were highlighted somewhere today, and I thought, wow, okay, that's actually looking now more when you see it in black and white, even more compelling than maybe I thought before.
Yep.
And we can obviously talk about where we go from here. I am joined by Phil McGinley and Connor Carr. We'll get all that good stuff out the road. It has been a while since I've done this. Obviously, if you want to like the video, that's always very helpful, much appreciated. Gets us the traction, the algorithm, as Phil calls it.
Algorithm, yes.
If you want to give us a share, slag my hair, by all means, you can do that as well. If you want to become a Boyce'S Bus member, then it's completely optional. It's $1.99 a month, but you could do it like Pam has, like Jim C, like Martin Kay, like Wendy Fraser, like Jim C again. Sorry, just read that one out. Alex Forsyth, like Big Alfred. If you want to do it, it's $1.99. There's a wee dollar sign somewhere, but it's completely optional. Our content remains free. However, it is very much appreciated, and it keeps the wheels on the road as the bus gets bigger and bigger and, well, a bit more naughtier as well, I suppose. Also, of course, we have to give a shout out to our sponsors. First and foremost, we're going to say to ED Pharmacy. Obviously, they provide, Phil, a QR code in their wee image, which I'm frantically trying to find.
It's under brand.
There it is.
There you go.
edpharmacy.co.uk. They are blue pills for erectile dysfunction. There is a chat now function on the website. They'll be happy to help you if you're around the Central Scotland area. They offer free same-day delivery service 7 days a week. And for the rest of the UK, they aim for next-day delivery. Order cut-off is 6 p.m. There's no hidden fees. The prices you see are the prices you pay. But of course, when you're a Boyce'S Bus viewer like all you guys, you can use the promo code BUS10 at the checkout for 10% off. I have to say, Steve O'Matt, Phil, he deserves a wee round of applause for that on Friday. The Pat Boner quip had me laughing a lot. So yes, don't be like Scott Bain, I think he said. Be like Pat Boner and get onto edpharmacy.co.uk. And of course, still tasty 12.5% off at piesports.com using the code BUS1888. Phil, you were there on Saturday. As I told you off air, my Burger King is going cold because it arrived late, so I need to be eating on stage. So you take it away how good Saturday was, mate.
Well, Saturday was exactly what I'd hoped it would be, a good resounding way to round off the season. Obviously, some of the results in the run-up to that game were a bit underwhelming. Obviously, a few second-string players got a few run-outs and didn't really achieve much at all. So it was good to see that we just went to town on Aberdeen on the last day of the season. Perfect remedy ahead of a rather big cup final at the end of the week. It's exactly what we needed to get some form. But traditionally on Trophy Day, we usually do put on a show over the last season. I go there for 16 years. So usually on Trophy Day, there is a resounding victory to be had. Beat Motherwell 5-0 last year. I was beating Motherwell 7-0 one year. And there was 1 year we beat Hearts 5-0 and Gary Hooper scored all 5. So yesterday or Saturday, I thought, going into that, I think we'll round off with a resounding victory, especially Aberdeen now securing third place. They've now got European football guaranteed to Christmas, so it was a bit of an exhibition game, essentially. But no, it was a good run out for the boys. Phenomenal atmosphere. The tifo display at the start was absolutely unbelievable.
Talk to me about that being there. Because
brilliant.
do you know what was quite crazy? I was with Jonathan earlier this afternoon, helping him with his bathroom. I've still got to go back and finish that off. But we were sitting talking about it, and he said, "You know what's mad about the tifo?" He said it actually almost looked good before it had even been done. See, you know, like photos that were just tied to the chairs. He was like, you could almost tell then it looked like this is going to be really good. I'm convinced that's the best one I've seen Celtic do so far. I think in terms of the detail, to get that, like the face with the shadow around it, it's special. Like, what was it like?
I didn't know what it was going to be until I arrived, but I'm always one that gets to the stadium quite early. So I walked up the stairs at my block and I could see down to the Lisbon Lions End. You could see the silhouette of Willie Maley. As soon as I walked in, I was like, it's Willie Maley. So I then knew that, because obviously I'm in the stand that's got the Jock Stein one on it. So just by the process of this, well, this side must be Jock Stein. They must have his face on this side. But you could see Willie Maley's face on the Lisbon Lions stand as I walked out. I was like, right, that's what it's going to be. When you're actually in there and amongst it, you know, I was actually, I can peek round the bit of paper essentially I'm holding up and I could see Willie Maley, but I couldn't see Jock Stein until I'd seen all the replays back again. But phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. And that's what, the third or fourth one they've done a full stadium display now, and it was fantastic.
The actual, you know, the difficulty in I don't even know how we would describe
logistics. The logistics of it.
The logistics of it is utter genius. Utter genius. And do you know what I love as well? You get that full buy-in from the fans as well, who are all going to take part. You know, wait till the tifo next year's campaign for the Celtic end. We'll see if everyone holds it up then, Phil. But I think that was, I thought that was class. That kicked off the tone.
Yeah, it did.
Connor, one thing as well I was going to say though, see, when it comes to performance, I know what you're saying, it becomes an exhibition game, and as you're right to quote, we do have history of pummeling teams on Trophy Day. But you know what? It mattered yesterday because the form may have dipped off, but there's a responsibility that comes with Trophy Day to put on such a performance. And that would suggest to me that when it matters, Celtic have never went away. When it didn't matter, Connor, Celtic's form dipped. We all can panic. We can all go, oh, it's not good enough. It's not good enough. Yesterday, there's a wee bit more pressure than normal because you've got a duty to the fans that have paid all season on their final trip to Celtic Park before the curtain closes to put on a display befitting of champions. That's what they did.
Yeah, obviously the people, obviously me, myself included, were getting like our knickers in a twist massively over the performances of the past week, and I still stand by a lot of the criticisms and that we had, because at the end of the day, you still have a duty to your supporters and for the ridiculous wage packet you get every week as a footballer to put on a good performance, you know, for the fans who travel and pay for the tickets and pay the prices and buy all the merchandise and get your name on the back of their top walking about, you know, putting you up on this pedestal. So, you know, I was obviously, we were kind of really concerned, you know, some people, including myself, going into this game, but after the first 30 seconds of that game, I just the switch in my head just went, or even when the tifo came out, I just went, this is going to be a good day.
Yeah, you've summed it up for me. That's what I felt as well. You're right.
And even seen it, you've seen the players looking at the tifo looking up, but you could just see the look on their faces, like, my God, like, this is something special. This club is something special, and it's excellent, you know. And the performance matched that. I feel like it was an even, you know, it was on par or maybe even better than the Trophy Day performance last year as well, which is saying a lot, because we definitely, you know, took a scalp off Motherwell that day. And, you know, we've been partying all weekend. It's been amazing. Kyogo's the top scorer. We've got players back from injury, although now they're back injured again. But we can see that when all the pieces are there, when it's the first team, when it's the starting 11, there's nothing to worry about. It could be the third best team in the country, and they won't get a shot on goal because we will just absolutely hammer them. So people, including myself, need to maybe take a step back, realise, take a breath and say, we're actually okay.
I've been wanting
Things
you
are
to take a
good.
breath for the last year you've been on this show.
I know, but yeah, so it's really important that we do realise that we are in the space and the position we are for a reason. It's because we're the best team in the country. We have the best players, whilst the strength and depth may not be as good as what it once was. We have an absolutely incredible first 11, and when all the gears are in place and when they're all clicking and turning, there's no one in this country that can match us. And that's why we're worthy champions and we're going to be worthy treble winners.
I love it. And Phil, by the way, I think it sounds like it's a bit of bravado, but he's right. He's not actually wrong in what he's saying. I mean, that first team, when you see Ange getting his best players fitting into his machine, if you like, again, you were reminded of how we got to the stage we'd won the league before the split, right?
Yeah.
And see, when you find out about some of the more fringe players, if you like, not being good enough, how great is it we got ourselves in a position we could find that out in competitive fixtures that didn't matter. That is a benefit very few teams get during the course of the season, let alone because it's trophy banked. Quite often you would maybe be able to do that if you were, I don't know, you knew you weren't going to make the top 6, but you knew you weren't getting relegated, something like that. Or you knew you were in the top 6, so your job was done, but you couldn't qualify for Europe. You get afforded these opportunities. Oh, I suppose if you're finishing second. But the beauty of it is for us, that's another added bonus, I think, of this season. It's easy to wet the bed when you see, honestly, the Muppets on my Twitter page on Saturday. That's the most fun I've had in a long, long time. I don't know if anyone is on Twitter to the us, but oh my God, it was lively. And they are rattled. And that's why you get all the reactions I get, because they are rattled. And the spin, Phil, I've mentioned this before to you about some of the spin that I've seen, and it's befitting of like when Alistair Campbell was in like government and that. Do you know what I mean? They were going, I've never seen spin like it, mate. I mean, they're literally trying to argue with you on Twitter that funny that Beale's won more points than Ange since. And like, he lost the league 13 points behind. He took over 9 points behind. This was not difficult maths. This is football heritage.
Respect. It's end of the day, it's league table doesn't lie. It's an old saying in football, but it's true. The league table does not lie. When people look back on this season, they'll just look at who finished top, and it was us. We'd done it when it mattered. We dropped a few silly points afterwards, but you're right. We've got ourselves in that position to have that opportunity. There's a few things. Was there a bit of hysteria over it? Maybe. Could have been stirred up a wee bit by media as well. You've got to take a few things into context. Maybe if there was something on the line in those games and some of those players that came in, maybe the performance would have been better, but there wasn't anything on the line realistically for us. Rangers can close the gap to single points and then point at it and go, oh, we only finished X amount of points behind, but we still won the league. I've used this one so many times in the last few weeks. Go back to the Tony Mowbray season.
Yeah, it's so accurate though.
We finished 6 points behind Rangers. The league table showed Rangers 87 points and us 81. There's not a single Celtic fan across the globe that will say, oh, that felt like we were only 6 points behind that season. Did it? Fuck. We felt terrible. We felt like we finished about 18, 19 points behind. No way did I look at the season.
When you told me it was 6, I actually could not believe that, Phil. I could not believe you said that season finished 6 points behind.
6 points. Thanks to old Neil Francis Lennon with that wee run at the end. But it's because after Rangers had won the league and say early April, they'd done the hard work, took the foot off the gas, had a few shocking results. I don't remember the media having any sort of field day about Neil Lennon's got Walter Smith's number there. Don't remember any of that at all. So it's a similar scenario to that. And it's like, look, at the end of the day, with the champions, we're going to go on and win the treble now as well. And Angel have taken note and taken stock of what he saw over the last few weeks. He's not stupid in that sense, and he will look to address it, I reckon, in the summer. We will look to strengthen. I mean, some of the stuff he's come out and said recently suggests to me that he's got plans for next season. And I think if people think we're just going to stand still, which a lot of the media seem to keep doing, and a lot of them, when talk about spin, they keep saying, 4 or 5 signings for Rangers, and they'll be right there with them. And it's like, that's if we don't add. But if you think we're not going to add, then you're a bit foolish. And it might, as Ange said in an interview recently, that might work to our advantage if our rivals think we're not going to strengthen. So
let's get down to it. Let's get down to it, because again, Phil, you were there. I was watching it on the telly, and I found the speech pretty impressive. He did it, in fact. It was funny because obviously, like I say, BMP was 10 minutes and we were out, right? Because everyone else was out partying or listening to Ange instead of me, which absolutely right, by the way. Spot on decision and fair play to you. But Steve-O had just jumped in the studio online, so me and him in a bizarre way kind of watched it, not quite holding hands, but, you know, we watched it together, if you like, just an online sort of format. And the two of us went, oh, I knew it would be good. I didn't know he would. He doesn't miss. I've said this before. He doesn't miss. He picks his moments. What we seen was something I kind of, not to sound like a smart ass, because I know that football's the only sport in the world. If you're not a Nostradamus, you get your opinion from years ago held against you forever unless it was spot on the money. I don't understand where that comes from. It's the only sport in the world you're meant to predict 100% accurate at all times. But I do remember saying during the season, he will be acutely aware of everything being said, and he's hinted at it already. But I went, do you know what will happen? He will get to the point where it's once the trophies are done, that's when Ange is going to bump his gums. I guarantee you he has, because you just know he's smart that way. He's smart that way, and he's going to go, you wait for the moment, the right moment to go in for the kill. And when it's the moment to go in for the kill, you cannot afford to miss. Ange did not miss. Connor, he does it in front of 60,000 bound fans. He does it with a big gleaming SPFL trophy right beside him. He does it with a backup of Martin O'Neill behind him going, let me at them. And I wonder if O'Neill thought, that's good. See, that's how I would have done as well. I like that. And by the way, that Beatles a prick and all. I bet he thinks the same. You know it. Let's go into the speech because he covers a few things that are really, really important. He uses his own mantra, champions. Remember, he said it quite blank last time. So this time it was champions again. He decides to get in the name check of Callum McGregor pretty early. I think that's fitting. I think this is a guy that, when you actually look at the responsibility he took upon his shoulders in Ange's first season, when he could easily have left. Let's be honest, after the 10 was gone, I was thinking then, well, he's not going to be still at the club. Like, for even if we were to go on another 9 titles in a row to try and get 10, well, he actually might. But you know what I mean? The chances are slim. What left's he got to achieve in a Celtic jersey? He's 28 years old. He's done it all here. Sadly, we fell at the last hurdle, and we know he'll have interest down south. Instead, Ange gives him the armband and says, I know this is a shit tip, but I need you to be front, left and centre of saving this alongside me. And I think Ange has remembered all that sort of thing. And I thought it was good that he gave him a name check. He then pulls at the heartstrings. He decides to quote a bit of Tommy Burns. And by the way, what I love about that is, like we've seen with the amount of praise Jota got for going to the Brazen Head, wearing the old Bumblebee kit, you're seeing a wee bit more than just wages, career, stepping stone FC from these guys. You know, there's seems to be a part of Celtic that has attached to their heart. You know, I'm not in the mindset of Ange's, a die-in-the-wool Celtic man and he'll never leave and stuff like that. That's maybe a debate for a different day. But what I do think is, undeniably, he has an emotional investment in Celtic as well. Not maybe to the levels people think, but he definitely does, because when you're pulling out and thinking about Tommy Burns in a moment like that, that tells you something about this club's got a wee bit of a hold on you. And then, of course, he has the aimed barb at his rival, and he says, champions again, because I am a lucky man. Connor, that's just a wee bit of everything, isn't it? There's a bit of what we wanted from Ange. He obviously said, and because we never stop at the end and all that as well. So he's got his own taglines. He's done the emotional pull, and he's had the shot across the bow at his rivals. Giddy.
Yeah, I think the perfect way to sum it up is that that Snoop Dogg meme is like, that motherfucker don't miss, man. That's what happened yesterday. That's the way I could sum it up perfectly. And it was everything you would want for him to say, besides maybe just if he wanted to quit the Wolf of Wall Street, be like, I'm not fucking leaving. Like at the very end, just doing something like that. But he would never do that, as we know, because we know what Ange's like. But the fact that pulled on the heartstrings, you know, talking about Tommy Burns. Like, my mum was nearly greeting, sitting on the sofa and that, you know. Maybe that's because she was 7 gin and tonics deep, but never mind. But, you know, and, you know, having a shot at that absolute fucking Diddy B. Lacrosse, like, was just the bellissimo. It was just the icing on the cake for, you know, just to get it up, that absolute fucking donkey. Because he's like, Ange is very clever because he's kept his mouth shut up until he's won, whether it's the League Cup, you know, victory, saying to Ali McCoy's Draggies a lift up the road to Celtic Park, or whether it's after, you know, the semi-final, keeping it till then, and then just there saying, you know, oh, I'm very lucky. I'm a one because I'm a lucky man. And even the Celtic Twitter, I don't know what they are feeding that boy that works the Celtic Twitter account, because he's been all over it this season, you know, taking jabs at them, and we're here for it, you know, saying, Alexa, play Lucky Man by the Verve. You know, it's just, yeah. Did you not see that? Yeah, they said they put a picture of Ange saying, Alexa. They say, yeah, put a picture of Ange saying, Alexa, play Lucky Man by the Verve.
They should have played at the stadium, by the way. The DJ missed a trick there. They should have played that during the lap on.
Played it.
Oh, yes.
But yeah, it's just it was an incredible speech, and you know, you could look at this as, like, he says that people looking at things are a bit too cryptic, and you know, he's not trying to do anything, he's not trying to hint at anything, but he says, oh yeah, we've got one more, and people are like, oh, he's meaning the treble, but it could be meaning the treble, but it could also be meaning one more season. Could also be hinting that he could still be here for another season, so you never know. But maybe that's just me crossing my fingers, toes, and my testicles. But you know, let's just hope for the best. And yeah, God bless him. God bless Ange. I know.
You keep those testicles crossed, mate, because Phil, you get a manager who is of a level of intelligence, whether we like it or not, is ahead of the game. He walks in a room, he has people sussed. He can read people. He knows exactly the environment he's operating in Scotland. He knows exactly how the media view him. He knows exactly the preferential treatment they've shown at Mickey Beale. Yep. He knows exactly how much waffle, bluster, self-preservation that his rival manager has used. He knows it all.
Yep.
Yeah, he's the one with the trophies. So he takes his aim then. But there was more to the speech than that. I want your take on that part as well, obviously. But the whole speech is a well-rounded, sort of performance, if you like, for a minute or so. He kind of covered all bases, didn't he?
He did. I know a few fans will be like, oh, they wanted that reassurance about next season and that. I don't think it was the time. I think he's staying anyway. I'm just my opinion. I don't think there is anything to answer. I've said my piece on the Tottenham links anyway. I don't think it will happen. I think he will be here next season. I think he's already gave a few cryptic clues in interviews that he's planning for next season. But in terms of everything that he covered, he galvanised the support massively. And yeah, there was just the roar at the end of the Lucky Man line was just phenomenal. You know, proper, like, you know, hair standing up on your arms and stuff like that when you're listening to it. It's just, oh, this guy he's got that aura, a presence about him. It's something that we've said for a long time on this show about he's the type of guy that when he walks in a room, you know he's in charge, you know he's the boss. There's some managers that you've seen in football for years all around the world where you're like, how can he be taken seriously as a manager? How can he possibly command authority? You know, Ange Postecoglou, generally, he walks in a room, he doesn't even say anything. He just has the it factor. You just look at him and go, that's the boss. He's in charge. You just know right away. And I think it's just something about him, a statesmanship about him, you know, that type of thing. And he's just a phenomenal. He's been a phenomenal for us. You know, when we obviously brought him over, you know, a lot of people were scratching their heads, like, what's going to happen here? But he's proved so many people wrong, continues to prove people wrong to this day. And I still think, we've still got a very bright future under Postecoglou in that speech there that we can just get me fired. I'm all ready now for Saturday, mate. I'm absolutely jumping at the bit to be there on Saturday, man.
Fantastic, Phil. I love that excitement. You can hear it actually in your voice when you're talking there. That's brilliant. Jim C, $9.99, he's just donated. Thank you so much, mate. He's really enjoyed being a member on the bus this season. He says the best and most honest hoops pod out there. Loving it. Keep it going, guys. Thanks, Jim, mate. That's really kind. Back to Ange. Yes, I agree with you. I think what we're seeing from him is, as well, is a level of professionalism you need to understand, because what he's got to do when he's in situ is treat the job like he is going nowhere, even if we were to find out in a week or so that he is leaving. Who knows? Because I think it's still up in the air. I don't think anything's been decided anywhere right now at this moment in time. So, of course, he's got to then carry on. He's still getting paid each day to be Celtic manager, therefore his focus is to carry on being on Celtic. I know what you're saying about he didn't mention his future and stuff in the speech. I just don't think it's the right time or place to be doing that. And I'll tell you the reason why I don't think he did. I still think for all the aura he's got, the charisma he's got, one of the reasons I think we all really like him as well, geez, oh, this is a loving. But one of the reasons we like him as well is I think he has a humility about him when he goes Celtic first, me second.
Yes.
Today's not about me. Why would I be talking about my future on trophy day when I've just seen Martin O'Neill walk up with that trophy there, and then I'm to get a mic and start going, oh, by the way, I'm not leaving and stuff. It's just not him. He's like, no, I'm not going to make all this about me. No, absolutely not. And I think that's absolutely fair. And I think the summer, we're going to be afforded opportunities to worry and speculate and things like that. Celtic, of course, have a gift where they could, if the rumours are true, make him the highest paid manager in Celtic's history, or offer him a 5-year deal, I heard rumoured as well, on the table. Well, it's their gift to offer him all these things based on the success he's had without anyone raising an eyebrow at it. So it's up to them as much as anyone else to make a compelling argument, to keep a manager of such ability. And Connor, what I love about this season is it's not finished yet. I love the fact it's not finished yet. And we're going to have one more moment where we see him lifting a trophy. I mean, I'm not even entertaining the idea we get beat. We're not getting beat next week. And I just feel that then, once you've seen that, you can start now signposting these sort of moments as moments where we've realised we have had a 2-year spell now that will be looked back on, I feel, just as fondly, if not more fondly, we were talking about this last night, Phil, than what Rodgers' first 2 seasons were, than what Martin O'Neill's first 2 seasons were. In that vicinity, I believe, is where he's going to find himself based on the first 2 seasons. Hopefully, there'll be another season of it. Again, like I say, we've got all summer to worry about all this stuff. Do you know what I mean? And there might be news either way about contracts or him leaving in the near future, and we'll do deep dives into all that. But I just think at this moment in time, if you're getting mentioned in the same breath as what Rodgers did in the first 2 seasons, what particularly O'Neill did in the first 2 seasons, you've done a pretty good job, right?
Yeah, it's, and it's really incredible what he's done, because the fact is that when Rodgers came in, yes, it was off the back of Dyla, but they were still winning things. The squad weren't necessarily broken, their heads weren't down necessarily. And under Ange, he came in, that squad needed absolutely tore up at the root. Players needed let go or moved on. He needed to bring in a full new squad of players from different cultures all over the world, integrated them into Glasgow, Scottish football, Celtic, and his style of play. All of that combined is a very difficult job. And he's done that time and time again with players from, Japan, over from the MLS, Sweden, just, it's incredible. And, the way he keeps going, he will be held in a higher regard. And he already is held in a higher regard than Brendan Rodgers to a lot of people. Now, I know it's not necessarily a popular opinion, but I've kind of just forgave Brendan Rodgers. I don't consider him a rat or anything. I understand why he did what he did. and the things that led up to that. However, I don't think Ange is that kind of person. He's not all about himself. He is more about the collective, a unit, the Celtic Football Club, the family, all of that. And, he's just bought into this club, and it's amazing what he's done. He's transformed the players who we thought were absolutely, done. Like Anthony Ralston, we thought, he can't play for St Johnstone or Dunfermline. What use has he got? And we were saying he was better last season than a Croatian international. He should be playing over him. And he actually, I know Juranovic was obviously his favourite out of the two, but he contributed more last season with goals and, assists. That goal that Anthony Ralston scored against Ross County in like the 98th minute or whatever, up at Dingwall, it'll go down as one of my favourite Celtic goals of all time. And it was Ange Postecoglou as the architect of that. Kyogo, who has become... Kyogo's became this generation's Henrik Larsson. I'm not saying he's as good as Henrik Larsson, but he is this generation's Henrik Larsson. He is the star man. He is the icon. He is the number 8. Kyogo is on all the back of the Wayne shirts. They're all walking about with Japan headbands. I even seen a Wayne cutting with Kyogo's haircut once. Do you know what I mean? And that's not even fashionable. Do you know what I mean? It's the same effect as it's the same effect as the R9 haircut. It's not fashionable, but it's iconic in its own way. So it's, just everything that this man has brought to this club, from the football down to the way that even the social media team interacts with fans, the way the players interact with fans. There is no egos in that dressing room. From top to bottom, he has revolutionised and reunified the club. And from where we were at the end of the 10 in a row season, that's, in my opinion, legendary. And I might be getting ahead of myself, but he stays another season, he wins another treble. He is a Celtic legend, in my opinion.
Well, it's interesting, Phil, as well, because the thing is with legendary has got to adapt to the modern times as well. If you want to become a legend in the modern times, and there are different scenarios that you find yourself in, you're not going to have the longevity of being in charge of a football club for a decade and things like that. It's very rare it happens. Let's be honest, it's the exception to the rule. It tends to be that they're 2-3 years. In Celtic's case, about the 3-year, 4-year mark max. I just feel that right now, and again, it annoys me when we lose a game and the default argument goes back to, look where we were when he took over. Look where we were then. And what he's done now, I'm like, you can't just keep dining out on that, though. If you lose a game, we lose the game, or if we drop points, we drop points. Let's just accept that that's got nothing to do with it now. However, what I do think is, when you are signposting it and you are rubber stamping the career you're having at Celtic with trophies, like Ange's right now, then you can, on the back of a success, have that conversation and say, look where we were to where we are now. And those trophies now being there against all odds. And this guy is accused of spending a fortune to do so. He lost £18 million Edward, a £13 million Crisaya, a £3 million Ryan Christie, who by all means he only had 6 months, remember, left in his deal that ended in December. Mind that?
Yeah.
This is the weirdest thing ever. But what was his valuation? 10 million quid normally, something like that. He lost all these guys before that ball was kicked. So, not after a couple of balls had been kicked, but I think, well, obviously before the first window he was in had shut, they were all gone. With that money, it's what you do with what you bring in that you'll be judged. Anyone who thinks he's had like some sort of net spend of fortunes and £50 million are living in cuckoo land. I've said it before. What's his biggest crime in terms of spending? When they call it a fortune, are they accepting that they are just rooked? Because Cameron Carter-Vickers and Jota are money we were spending 23 years ago.
I don't know. It's scary for the same for
It's not that beyond the pale that Celtic in 23 years later can afford players for the same price they could then. It's not an argument that's going to stand up, and it's certainly not part of the legacy he's built at Celtic in our eyes, is it?
No, definitely not. And it's weird that you hear these arguments about the money he's spent. We've said it loads of times on here where he hasn't. So the players that he's bringing in, some of them are the fees. Like, what was Hitati again? Like $1 million or something like that. So it's like this whole argument about he spent this copious amounts of cash. It's like I don't think, again, you don't understand what net spend is. You know, the money that went out and so forth, it all balances out. And yeah, we're not going out spending like £10 million per player and stuff like that. So this idea that he's just basically bought the league is absolute nonsense. Say they've spent money they've not even had and still couldn't keep up with us at times. So that's just peddling for excuses, mate. That's all they're doing with that stuff. Anything just to try and discredit it and so on. So I tend to just put my fingers in my ears and not listen to that lot when they're throwing on about those types of things, because it doesn't hold any water at all, the types of excuses. Ange is showing that he doesn't need to be spending stupid amounts of money per player to find a good player. Have all the signings worked out? No, that's another argument you can say as well. They're going on about all this money that he spent. There's a lot of signings we've brought in that haven't worked out. The Abelgards of this world, Moritz, Yessss, stuff like that. So there are players, so he hasn't got it perfect every time. So that's another thing that kind of discredits them. So yeah, he's brought in players that he inherited, like Connor was saying, guys like Rouse and stuff like Greg Taylor. He's brought them up to a better level, and then added to it. I say some of the players that have really hit the ground run, like Hitati. I'm good. Hitati was for the longest part. I think before he got injured, I think Hitati was probably on course to get the Player of the Year. In the end, it was Kyogo goals. But I think Hitati going out with that injury for a couple of months there probably cut it, because before that, my God, Hitati was absolutely unbelievable for him. I say, what, £1 million or so on. So I don't think this whole idea that he's bought the league or anything, given the budget that they've got over there, and they always seem to find money wherever they find it in the back of the couch or whatever, they always seem to find funds from somewhere. I don't think it really stands up, and it's just them looking for excuses all the time. Like nonsense. As Roy Keane would say, do me a favour. Do me a favour.
Well, that's it. But of course, that will come then with the responsibility to carry on encouraging Ange. Do you want to be part of this corner? And that will mean this summer again, it'll be a topic of conversation, I think, at length, that we don't want to see guys like Moritz, Yessss and Abelgard come in and not even last half a season. I mean, 5 months in and Jens was back in Germany. Abelgard played 3 times, released back to Rubin Kazan. Like, that tells me, firstly, I don't think it's so much Ange hasn't got those guys right. I don't think they were the guys that Ange wanted on his list in the first place. Which, again, don't want to deflect too much, go into that too much today. I think it's important that we stay as positive as we possibly can. But, notwithstanding that, we should 100% be backing this guy again this summer. And I take Stubbsy Sauce's point that he's put in the chat, and he's saying, was he the Messiah after X, Y, and Z games that we lost? We'll definitely need to judge it in Europe, things like that. Let's see what he does there. I kind of subscribe to that as well. I have to say, though, I'm confident that if he is still in situ, Connor, Europe will very much, now he's completed, if you like, the treble thing, I think his list of priorities will probably match what I've said mine are for the last 18 months on the bus, and that is League, Champions League, then it's Scottish Cup, then League Cup. And I think if that's where the focus is, and if the squad depth isn't as good, but we have improved the first team, then he'll maybe take more chances in something like the League Cup, because that happens at a similar sort of time to the Champions League as well. I wouldn't mind if I seen that. I'm not going to panic if we went out of that, and it showed, because we've got a real focus at the CL. He's going to have one eye on that, isn't he? That's going to be now. Provided we get this treble, of course. I know I'm getting a wee bit ahead of myself, but that's okay. I like to do that with football fans. I think once he's done the treble, that'll be that's another big tick. You know what I mean? He's put himself again in a very, very small and select group of managers that have achieved that, and he'll like that bit of history beside him. And then it'll be, right, let's look at Europe, because I think he knows he could have done better this year, I think there's a few reasons for that. I do believe the 2 centre-halves is a massive factor. And I think, as well, he may argue his game plan worked perfect. His strikers didn't. Might be his argument. I wonder if he's got an inner confidence that we might just be on the brink of seeing a wee bit more than just the domestic glory that we've all been spoiled with in the last couple of decades.
Yeah, I mean, think about it. He was, he got the revival last season, the Celtic, spot on, and he's came and let's be honest, he's going to get the treble. Like, there's not a chance in hell that Caley Thistle are going to beat us. So, I mean, I didn't care if I fucking an idiot.
Snip that one up.
I didn't care. So, he can just basically turn around and just be like, Scottish football completed it, mate. It's done. He's done everything he can, basically domestically that he can do. And Europe is obviously probably that that thing that's still nipping at his heels that he wants to, have a really good crack at. And meanwhile we've got plaudits, not points. He must be really wanting to correct some wrongs from Europe last season, because I feel like it kind of meanwhile I said, congratulations to Gio and that for getting to a Europa League final. He'll have known in the back, he said, he's like, we're miles better than them and they got to a European final. He's probably just in his mind, he's like, that's mad, that's mental. Because he'll know that those players in that dressing room, right, are more than good enough to compete in Europe. Whether it's at Champions League level or Europa League level, we'll have to wait and see. But they are more than good enough to compete. And we've seen that. They went toe-to-toe with one of the best teams in world football and looked like getting the result up until, the 60th minute, because we were, as bad as we were in the final third of taking our chances, we were pretty unlucky as well with a couple of things. Shots coming off the bar, marginal offsides, whatever you want to. You can go down that rabbit hole if you want. But Europe for Ange, I think, is the the final centerpiece on his diamond encrusted career, if you want to put it that way. That's the the final hurdle, the final journey, and then if he does what he wants to do, and I think I've said it before, I feel like as long as Ange is here and he's backed properly, and he, forever how long he's here, we could win a European Cup. If he's backed properly, if he's back to the hilt, which we want, we don't want Morrisons and Abelgards. We want players who he really, really wants to come in, not what he's getting offered.
Yeah, no, I think you've nailed that, by the way. I agree with that on both those players. I think they were players that were suggested and fitted the profile of the players he'd described he wanted, but I don't think his actual individuals were the ones he'd identified. No. I think they were. Yeah, I think Vinicius Junior, for example. Well, no, not Vinicius Junior.
Vinicius Souza.
I wish we'd say Vinicius Junior.
That was exclusive. That was exclusive. Sorry, I wasn't going to say that.
By the way, Souza could. I know there's a rumour that he might be getting let go from Aberdeen he's at, so he could still be.
Well, Espanyol got relegated.
Ah, they did, didn't they?
Okay.
Yeah, but yeah, that'd be an interesting one. I mean, obviously, I'd like to think the list is regenerated again, rather than it being names from the past. But yes, Phil, we're in a place where the team has improved its standings in the league this year. There's been more wins, more goals, bigger, better, stronger. Europe next?
Well, Champions League, this is always the thing where fans have been conditioned with this mentality that we're just kind of happy to be in the Champions League and so on. But the Europa League, we look at what happened across the city a year ago, and Connor's saying that he's confident we can win a European trophy, or if they can get to the final of the Europa League, and we're definitely better, why not? Problem is, when you're in the Champions League group stage, how do you finish third? You just need to win as many games as possible, and if you happen to finish third, so be it. You can't plan to finish third, because being realistic, and I know Ange wouldn't have that attitude if we did get through to the second round. Ange would be thinking, no, we're going to, we like believe we can win it, even though, chances are, I think I had that with Australia, didn't he, in the 2014 World Cup. He went there with this mentality. But if we were to drop into the Europa League, if the stars aligned and we did happen to find ourselves in there, then again, straight knockout all the way. This is the chance to turn that record around, because it is absolutely abysmal that we haven't won a knockout stage game for 20 years it'll be. So it's like, well, now is the time. So if that mob across the city, If it's a case of just being a bit more, defensive minded in some games, so be it. But then again, you look at what happened in the Champions League this season. We did have a go at a lot of teams, and it was just unlucky circumstances for some of them. 82 shots on goal or something like that in the group stages across 6 games, and only had 3 goals to show for it or something along those lines. So it's like we were doing a lot of things right, going by Ange's game plan. But yeah, it's definitely the next frontier. And here's another thing to think about as well, that we're talking about, if he stays on for another year, see the year after that, in 2 seasons' time, the Champions League changes to the new format. That'll be interesting because it's more games, it's also going to be more money and so on. I don't know if Scotland goes back to a point where a coefficient will mean there's going to be qualifying rounds or the Scottish champions will get in automatically. But I believe it's from the 2024-25 season, it changes to this new one league of 36 teams. You play 8 fixtures instead of 6. A lot more money involved in it, a lot more glamour, essentially. So I wonder if you'll be thinking, I want to stick around to try and have a crack at that version of it as well, or I don't know. That's something to think about. But that's a good year down the line before we're even thinking about that one. But I think Scotland may have to, their champions may need to go through qualifiers as well, because obviously Ange is the 2 times he's won the title so far, we've not had to endure any qualifiers, which is a huge help because we know how much we hate them. But that's something for the future as well. I wonder what that we and how we would approach that if Ange finds himself in that position where he's leading us into that version of the Champions League in a year's time.
All very true. And only the record in Europe has been appalling. You're absolutely spot on, by the way. But I think where we see negativity in it, and just someone who sees opportunity, I just get that feeling, and again, I can't speak for him, but that's my vibe anyway off him. I think he's seen Celtic, even when we think we don't look attractive because Eddie Howe won't come in without 30 different folk, his merry men. We think that must mean we look, folk meet up with Celtic reps and they just think, this is a shit show. I don't want to join them. That was the vibe because we just seen it as a negative. Ange looked at it and went, opportunity. Opportunity is what he's seen. And that'll be interesting to see what his approach is like for Europe next year, provided he's still in charge. He'll be there. What about the scenes that we've seen in Glasgow? I don't know if you've seen Gracie's drone footage. Have you seen that, Connor?
I have seen it, yes.
That is incredible.
That's
How many folk were in the streets partying?
Tens of thousands must have been. And that's not that's not even just in Glasgow city centre. Not mentioning, places outside of Glasgow. Because let's be honest.
That party there though that was in the footage, that's way more than I thought.
Aye, that looked like the fucking as though the same, but like it gave me the kind of vibes of the footage from Buenos Aires when Argentina won the World Cup. Like just like it must have been every citizen in that city was in that one area just packed in, and it looked like that, and it was amazing. The drone footage and everything, and people just having an absolute brilliant time, taking their kids, having a laugh, drinking, and even taking, helping with clean-up crews and stuff like that as well. And I know there's a darker element that's kind of sprung up out of nowhere in the past day with the rumours and such, but if you want to get into that, we can, but I kind of just want to focus on the good scenes and stuff. It's been it's amazing. I was going to go, but I decided against it because I'm absolutely skint, and I would have absolutely just been buying everybody in their more drink, and I would not have been able to get home. But we do trophy day well. We do celebrations well. We don't, destroy half the city when we win something. I'd say we're on a majority as a fan base. We're pretty respectful, pretty happy, and having a good time. And you know what? We're going to do it all again next week.
Brilliant. Phil, before we go, we're going to talk about Kyogo. As I say, I see the stats. 48 games, 33 goals, 5 assists. That's 38 goal contributions in how many games did I say? 38,
44.
48.
44 games, You said 44 appearances, 38 goal contributions. It's pretty good, isn't it?
Scary, mate. How big a player is he going to be again next year for us? And is he, when Connor's comparing him with Henrik, we all know Henrik's a far, far better player,
Yeah,
but I
yeah.
get where he's coming from with the drawing the comparison of this generation still needs a hero, right? Just because you can't then, because they're not as good as Henrik, not have the next generation of fans and the generation after that not having guys they can absolutely hang their hat on to score goals in big games just because they're not as good as the one that was our generation. And there is eerie similarities when you look at the exact same age, bar I think it's 3 months difference or something when they joined. Henrik was 3 months older than what Kyogo was when he joined. And when they've arrived, they've improved each season. Kyogo looked like a goal-getter this season. He looked more like a goal machine this season. The number of unglamorous goals that he scored, I think, is what really appealed to me with Kyogo. I know there's always going to be a few crackers in there, like Tannadice, for example. I mean, that was just a brilliant off-the-cuff curler strike. That was just amazing. But the amount of tap-ins he scored this year as well, just the right place, right time. Champions League will be something that will remotivate him because he'll know he underperformed this year. But when you look at it as well, because of the ageism that goes on in football, signing someone coming into the peak of their powers for a fee like $4.5 million, I would rather get the 30 plus goals year on year for the next 4 years than say a £10 million, £12 million transfer fee if they think his value depreciates by the time he's turned 28, 29. What is he now, 29? 28.
28. Okay.
28 in January it was. Yeah, so this is like, he joined at 26 and a half, as did Henrik. Henrik was just a wee bit closer at 27 when he joined. They're very, very similar ages. That is called the peak years, these years as well. Henrik actually, I think, even got better in his early 30s. I'm not saying that'll be the same with Kyogo, who maybe uses a wee bit more of his intensity and pace than what Larsson did. Larsson's actual, I think his football brain just kept developing. That was like, he became even more all-round, even though he scored less goals when he first joined. He brought so much different parts. The trick, and we used to say, Kyogo's assist record might be 10 assists this time next year because he's becoming more all-round and adding further strings to his bow because we've got someone at the peak of their powers. And I think it's so exciting to have a guy at that age who, without the labels of project player, he was a ready-made first-team player at a ready-made age to make an impact. Funny that it's worked.
An oven-ready player, you would say?
Oven ready, mate.
Oven ready, mate. He was indeed. He wasn't burnt or anything. He was just right, oven ready. I think he'll make amends this year in the Champions League. I think the misses of last year, for whatever reason, he and Giacomakis, or even Maeda as well, whoever was playing up front in those games, some sort of stage fright just came over them. Just something was going wrong. They just couldn't put the ball in the net. But I think one of the big criticisms, if you could call it that, mostly from people outside of our club that were labelling it Kyogo, was he wouldn't score in big game occasions. Obviously, that Champions League campaign, and then he had scored against Rangers up to a point. Then he went on a run of scoring in 5 goals in 3 games against them. 2 of which in a cup final. And I know he scored 2 in the League Cup final against Hibs last year, but with no disrespect to Hibs, it's a big, big difference scoring in a game against Rangers than it is to Hibs. So that whole thing about he doesn't score on the big occasion, he's not a man for he just scores against, the bottom end teams, certainly not the case at all. I think it'll have done him the world of confidence. And I think they're in good stead in going into this season's Champions League campaign. It'll just be a fitness thing with him because at times, you are a bit worried whenever he goes down and stays. I know he went off injured there at the weekend, but Ange said, hey, as long as he's still got 2 legs on, he'll be absolutely fine. He says something along the lines of, if his leg hasn't fallen off, he should be okay, because he played with 1 leg last season in a cup final, so he should be okay. There's always a wee bit of a worry about the injury stuff. Remember the Rangers game at the start of the season, a minute into the game, he gets done by Lundstrom and he's off after a minute and so on. So as long as he's staying on the park, and I'm quite confident he will make amends for some of the misses last season in Champions League. He's going to be a big, big player for us.
Connor, when it comes to the comparisons that you make with Henrik, I think more of your generation go, well, you would have been too young probably for a lot of Henrik's best bits. Is that fair?
Yeah, I was born in '97, so.
So yeah, by the time he's left, 2004, you're only 6, 7 years old then. Do you know what I mean? So when we
Yeah.
think about it, who's came close that you've idolised in the Celtic team, and particularly up front? I think that'd be the best comparison because I know like Cal McGregor and stuff, Scott Brown. But in terms of like strikers, is Kyogo now? Would you say the best you've seen up front in a Celtic shirt you've idolised the most, or you've seen fans idolising the most, or has he still got a way to go to get to the likes of a Dembele or an Edouard or something like that?
I think. See, that's difficult because I feel like all three of those players, Dembele, Edouard, and Kyogo, were all like loved massively, but they were all loved for different reasons. I think Kyogo, just with the goals and that he scored and the record he's got, I think he just pegs it just over like Dembele. I think Dembele, when he came in, like obviously it was Griffiths up until he got injured, was still playing, and then he came in against Rangers and he kind of got that hat trick his first game. You're like that's how you like announce yourself on the stage, and you know he terrorised Rangers for like that 2 year spell. They had that dog in him, you know, Dembele. Obviously, we never really got to see much of him and Edward play together. But then Edward obviously took his place, and just the silkiness and the coolness, like coolness personified, is what Edward was. You know, but he obviously near the end, a lot of people didn't really like his attitude and stuff like that. And obviously Musa left only after 2 seasons as well. I don't think there's any danger that Kyogo leaves anytime soon. I think he's found his home, and I think that's where a lot of the loving comes from as well. And he's also endeared himself to the Celtic fan base and the community and the club as well. You know, he's even doing things like Stan Petrov mentioned it yesterday. Like he's learning English and even trying to say a little bit of his interviews in English. He's trying really hard to integrate himself. And when it comes to his ability, I think he's kind of the best of both worlds. Like, see that chop he did yesterday on his weaker foot as well, mind you, to bend that in was
exactly.
sublime. Yeah, and even like the back heel against Hearts, the 3-0 at Tynecastle, the screamer against Dundee United. He's done it all. He's kind of got everything. Whilst not the physicality, but do you know what? I'll give him. This is probably the biggest compliment I can give him. Right? His footballing brain's very similar to Henrik's. Unlike, I'd say, the other two, unlike Dembele and Edward, I'd say the runs he makes, the things he can see, are very much on the same level as what Henrik had, as opposed to the other two. And I think that's probably the biggest compliment I can give him. And yeah, he is, I'd say, the best we've had since Larsson. And I think he will, you know, do it for the next 2-3 years, maybe 4, because I don't think he'll go anywhere anytime soon. And this is, you know, when we go off this podcast and we start getting links with Fabrizio Romano that he's away to, you know, Aston Villa or something like that. But no, that's kind of where I would peg him, you know. And he's just a lovable guy, isn't he? Everybody just loves Kyogo. He's like a Wayne. He's just like a Wayne every time. He's so happy. He never causes a fuss. Doesn't he bring up a stink? You couldn't imagine him having a barmy with Ange about not getting a certain transfer, or say we were off the back of a loss in maybe a cup final or something to Rangers, letting his head drop and walking away like what Edward did. And I think that's, you know, the testament to him as a person as well as a player. And I think that's why everybody loves him.
Love it. Summed up nicely. Well, that's just shy of an hour. We will call it there. Thank you for your company this afternoon, lads. It's been a bank holiday. The sun's out. Go get some sun. I'm away to finish off Grout and Jonathan's bathroom because I offered to do it. I'm an idiot. What can I say? And yeah, I'll be missing out in the sun. But do you know what? Everything else, I'm a lucky man.